Letters of Herod and Pilate. The Trial and Condemnation of Pilate, commonly called the Paradosis of Pilate. It may be regarded as an historical continuation of the preceding, which it usually follows in the manuscript without any title. Now when the leaders came to the city of the Romans and were read to Caesar with no few standing there, they were all terrified because, through the transgression of Pilate, the darkness and the earthquake had happened to all the world. And Caesar, being filled with anger, sent soldiers and commanded that Pilate should be brought as a prisoner. And when he was brought to the city of the Romans, and Caesar heard that he was come, he set in the temple of the so-called gods above all the Senate, and with all the army, and with all the multitude of his power, and commanded that Pilate should stand in the entrance. And Caesar said to him, Most impious one, when thou sawest so many great signs done by that man, why didst thou dare to do thus? By daring to do an evil deed, thou hast ruined all the world. And Pilate said, King and autocrat, I am not guilty of these things, but it is the multitude of the Jews who are precipitate and guilty. And Caesar said, And who are they? Pilate saith, Herod, Archelaus, Philip, Annas, and Caiaphas, and all the multitude of the Jews. Caesar saith, For what cause did thou execute their purpose? And Pilate said, Their nation is seditious and insubordinate, and not submissive to thy power. And Caesar said, When they delivered him to thee, thou oughtest to have made him secure and sent him to me, and not consented to them to crucify such a man, who was just and wrought such a great and good miracles, as thou saidst in thy report. For by such miracles Jesus was manifested to be the Christ, the King of the Jews. Tes, sus, and aphoros. And when Caesar said this, and himself named the name of Christ, all the multitude of the so-called gods fell down together and became like dust where Caesar sat with the Senate. And all the people that stood near Caesar were filled with trembling because of the utterance of the word and the fall of their so-called gods. And being seized with fear, they all went away, every man to his house, wondering at what had happened. And Caesar commanded Pilate to be safely kept, that he might know the truth about Jesus. And on the morrow, when Caesar sat in the Capitol with all the Senate, he undertook to question Pilate again. And Caesar said, Say the truth, most impious one, for through thy impious deed, which thou didst commit against Jesus, even here the doing of thy evil works were manifested, in that the so-called gods were brought to ruin. Say then, who is he that was crucified? For his name hath destroyed all the so-called gods. Pilate said, And verily his records are true, for even I myself was convinced by his works that was greater than all the so-called gods whom we venerate. And Caesar said, For what cause, then, didst thou perpetrate against him such daring and doing? Not being ignorant of him, are assuredly designing some mischief to my government. And Pilate said, I did it because of the transgression and sedition of the lawless and ungodly Jews. And Caesar was filled with anger, and held a council with all the Senate and officers, who ordered a decree to be written against the Jews thus: To Lycianus, who holdeth the first place in the east country, greeting. I have been informed of the audacity perpetuated very recently by the Jews inhabiting Jerusalem and all the cities round about, and their lawless doing, how they compelled Pilate to crucify certain so-called God called Jesus, through which great transgression of theirs the world was darkened and drawn into ruin. determined therefore with a body of soldiers to go to them there at once, and proclaim their subjection to bondage by this decree, and obeying and proceeding against them, and scattering them abroad in all nations, enslave them, and by driving their nation from all Judea, as soon as possible show, wherever this hath not yet appeared, that they are full of evil. And when this decree came into the east country, Achaeanus obeyed, through fear of the decree, and laid waste all the nation of the Jews, and caused those that were left in Judea to go into slavery with them, that were scattered among the Gentiles, that it might be known by Caesar that these things had been done by Lycianus against the Jews in the east country, and to please him. And again Caesar resolved to have Pilate questioned, and commanded a captain, Alybius by name, to cut off Pilate's head, saying, As he laid hands upon the just man that is called Christ, he shall also fall in like manner, and find no deliverance. When Pilate came to the place, he prayed in silence, saying, O Lord, destroy not me with the wicked Hebrews, for I should not have laid hands upon thee, but for the nation of lawless Jews, because they provoked sedition against me. But thou knowest that I did it in ignorance. Destroy me not, therefore, for this my sin, nor be mindful of the evil that is in me. O Lord, and in thy servant Procla, who standeth with me, in this the hour of my death, whom thou taughtest to prophesy, that thou must be nailed to the cross. Do not punish her in too in my sin, but forgive us and number us in the portion of thy just ones. And behold, when Pilate had finished his prayer, there came a voice from heaven, saying, All generations and the families of the Gentiles shall call thee blessed, because under thee were fulfilled all these things that were spoken by the prophets concerning me, and thou thyself must appear as my witness at my second coming, when I shall judge the 12 tribes of Israel, and them that have not confessed my name. And the prefect cut off the head of Pilate, and behold, an angel of the Lord received it. And when his wife Procla saw the angel coming, and received his head, she also, being filled with glory, forthwith gave up the ghost, and was buried with her husband. Now, this is even more impossible than some of the other ones. But if you believe the 90s through 120 to 150 gospel accounts, writing an account like this after those were written seems a lot more possible. Now, one thing that's not possible is knowing what terms like Gentile mean. Both to the Hebrews, how they really translate over, they wouldn't have been calling themselves Gentiles. Not by birth, not by whatever. They wouldn't have, if the Jews were wicked, how in the world are you using their insults? Because that's what it is. Don't call people Gentile. If they're not an atheist, if they're not a polytheist, and the Christians would have pretended not to be polytheists,